Okay, so David Shalian on CNN had probably one of the worst political takes I think I've ever seen in my lifetime. Take a look at this.
This notion that he's really being run by a staff and they're running him further to the left than Joe Biden wants to be. He's this Trojan horse for big liberal policies that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Bernie Sanders and Chuck Schumer and Ron Klain, the chief of staff, they're trying to drive through. Now, that's not reality at all either, but they are desperately seeking some sort of approach here that can try and chisel away at Biden's popularity.
What evidence is there that it would work? This was tried during the campaign. They tried to paint Joe Biden as a crazy liberal. This was tried during the campaign where the Russians and the Trump campaign tried to paint Joe Biden as not mentally competent, and he still won. So why would this work now?
Yeah, and I'm glad you noted there are two things here at play, right, John? It is the sort of notion, oh, he's this old, out of touch guy, and so other people have to be in charge. And and other people are in charge that are going to be so much more extreme and liberal than Joe Biden presents himself to be. They're trying both in this one line of attack. And to your point, John, I've seen no evidence yet that it's working. I mean, obviously, we live in very polarized times, and there is some benefit that animates the Republican base with these lines of attack. But I see no evidence that broadly with the American people that Joe Biden has suffered in any way because of this line of attack coming from Republicans. And I think they know it, which is why they're continuing to search. I mean, John Cornyn is somebody, very closely tied to Mitch McConnell, very much part of the apparatus for putting together what the Republican messaging will be going into the 2022 midterms. And this is just a continued attempt now to find something that sticks because they haven't found it yet.
David, just very quickly, what does it tell us about the choice that the White House has made about where to have its political battles to this point? The relief package first, infrastructure second. They're choosing advantageous political ground, it seems.
Yes, because one way to maintain your popularity is to do popular things. And so what Joe Biden has clearly chosen to do here with his administration is, even though there are lots of other issues that the left wing of the Democratic Party would like him to put front and center, they may be more divisive to the body politic overall. And so he's sticking to what he believes are broadly popular economic policies for the country as the country's trying to recover through this COVID crisis. And that's what's keeping his numbers up at the moment.
David Chalian, thank you so much.
Okay, so basically what they were conversing about there was the right wings, the Republicans' line of attack when it comes to, hitting Biden. Basically they're trying to group him in with the more progressive people in Washington and say that they're the ones really running the show and that Joe Biden is, as they said, this kind of Trojan horse for liberal policy. He's a puppet of AOC. Now, we on the left, we know how ridiculous that is and how stupid that is. But these people, they're denouncing it as well. But they have a weird take on it. They're centrists, they're hacks, they're with the establishment. So I like, first and foremost, how he groups Chuck Schumer in with AOC and Bernie as if they all agree on the same things. Like, no, you can't compare Chuck Schumer to AOC and Bernie Sanders. Like, Chuck Schumer is for, Medicare for all and a Green New Deal and a bunch of other shit that they're for. No, like, you're invalid as soon as you said that. Then he says they trying to paint Joe Biden as a crazy liberal, it's for all these progressive policies. Okay, so having everybody to have health care, everyone, in case you didn't know, according to David Chalian, that makes you a crazy liberal. Okay, wanting to raise the minimum wage $15, which isn't even a living wage anymore in America, that makes you a crazy liberal. Wanting to end the wars equals crazy liberal. There you go. David Chalian, everyone. And I like how the other guy on the left side of the screen, I don't know his name, but he says that, the right wing and the Russians, had to throw Russia in there, okay? Haven't let it go just yet. The right wing and the Russians were trying to paint him as someone that's not mentally competent. Well, I have news for you. He's kind of not. I mean, even as he's become president, we've seen little sputters of him where he kind of loses it a bit when he's giving a speech or when he's talking or whatever. I mean, he has his moments, man. He's an old guy. He probably has. I'm not gonna cast any diagnosis. I'm no doctor, okay, but he has some issues going on. He's an old guy, okay. So they have some ground to stand on there. And during the campaign trail, there were many instances where he didn't seem like he was mentally competent. You can't get at them for that. I mean, come on. If Donald Trump acted the same way that Joe Biden did or does every now and again, they wouldn't get off of him about it. They wouldn't get off of him about it. He says that there's no evidence that this is working. Basically, the right wing's attempt to paint Joe Biden as a communist or a socialist or as a Marxist, which is basically what they do on Fox News, One American News Network, Newsmax. Joe Biden is the most commie of all commies to those people. And it's extremely hyperbolic and reactionary. And they're right in saying that it isn't working. And you want to know why it isn't working? It's not working because we know who Joe Biden is, you idiots. David Shalian. It's not working because we know who he is. We know he's a centrist. We know he's essentially a moderate Republican. Okay. We know he's no progressive warrior. We know that. And the people know that. So that's why this isn't working, because they can't be fooled anymore. We know what his record is. He's Iraq War Joe Biden. He's Crime Bill Joe Biden. He's the same guy that made it to where you can't declare bankruptcy for student loans. That's who he is. We know who he is. We know his record. Like, what the fuck? There's no evidence this is working. Of course it's not working. Now, it'll work for the right wing because they're susceptible to this type of stuff. But to people that actually have some semblance of knowledge, this stuff isn't going to fly with them. He says one way, and I love how he answers his own question. He says, one way to maintain popularity is to do popular things. Wow. So what's popular here in this country? A nationalized healthcare system, Medicare for all, giving everybody healthcare. That's fucking popular. Joe Biden isn't for that. He's not for that. And these guys aren't for it either. What's popular? A $15 minimum wage. The Democrats shot themselves in the foot because of a parliamentarian. Didn't want to get that done. They're fucking around with the filibuster. They don't want to do reform or abolish it. I'm for reforming it, but if I'm put in the situation of keeping it or abolishing it, I'll abolish it if we can't get the reform first. He says left policies may be more divisive. How so? Left policy, as in a $15 minimum wage, the majority of the country supports that. I think it's 2/3 or something like that. Left policies may be more divisive. Medicare for all is extremely popular. Over 80% of Democrats support that. There are some polls that like 50% of Republicans support a nationalized healthcare system. Ending the wars is overwhelmingly popular. I mean, these people's view on politics is so corrupted and so mistaken. I mean, this is establishment corporate media at its finest, guys. They're talking within the realms of what's allowed on those platforms in order to get the people that watch their bullshit to think a certain way. I mean, it's propaganda at its finest to insinuate that progressive policies that'll help the people overwhelmingly isn't popular. A UBI is a left policy that's, ever since the pandemic started, as I've seen, has gained a lot of traction, and people are kind of floating towards that, and they like the idea of a UBI. You know, in certain places, we actually do a UBI here in this country. He said, to end this in regards to Joe Biden, he's sticking to broadly economic policy. You know, people like it when you do things for them. They like it when you say, write them a check, give them money, which is what happened with that stimulus deal. Now, it wasn't the $2,000 checks that they promised. The $15 minimum wage wasn't in there. And those are really good criticisms of the bill, right? And it didn't come right away as they said that it would. But nevertheless, the people got material well-being from the Democrats, and they rewarded him for it by his approval rating is still sitting pretty good. I think it's somewhere around 55%. But it will only remain that way or increase if he continues to pass progressive policies, more progressive policies than that stimulus package was. I just outlined the criticisms of it. But these people don't see it that way. They see, okay, if he toes the line down the center and be, the biggest centrist of all centrists and cater to the corporations and the rich, that'll somehow make him liked among the people. I mean, their way of looking at politics is fundamentally incorrect and mistaken and so misguided, but you can't tell them this. I mean, they're stuck in their ways and they'll never think anything else. But this was a riot. I mean, comparing Chuck Schumer to AOC and Bernie, still clinging to the Russiagate thing. I mean, saying that left-leaning policies is divisive. Divisive in what manner, sir? Jesus Christ. These people's outlook on politics it's absolutely ridiculous. This is one of the worst political takes I think I've ever seen.